Hello friends, welcome back. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Tom, this is Tom's Mons. Let's pick right back up where we left off. In the last video we talked about how Capcom had created this new IP in the interest of online play. So they had a subscription-based game on the PlayStation 2 called Monster Hunter. You could play the game online with your friends. There was also a single-player option. It wasn't quite as fleshed out as it is nowadays, but it was there. In this video, we're going to be talking about the differences from Monster Hunter to Monster Hunter G, which is the basically expanded version of Monster Hunter. We will get to Gen 2, I promise. There are just a lot of changes that happened inside Gen 1, so let's get into it. So before the developers of Monster Hunter decided to move on and make an entirely new game, they love to make an expansion on the existing Monster Hunter games. So they made Monster Hunter G for the PlayStation 2. This was Monster Hunter 1, except they added in a lot of quality of life features that made the game a little more accessible and also just more enjoyable. They added the dual sword class in Monster Hunter G. So if you remember in the last video, I talked about how they already included the dual sword class in Monster Hunter on the PlayStation 2 in the West. Well, the Japanese didn't get it until Monster Hunter G. Okay, and a few other quick changes that they made for Monster Hunter G. They added G rank quests, which is another level of difficulty in the quests. They added a training school, which was much needed. They added a higher sharpness level, so green was no longer the max sharpness. I believe white was the max at this point. They also changed the skill system so that it operated with numbers that you could actually see, so you could make your own mix sets rather than going in blind or needing to look it up online or needing a strategy guide. And then they also added subspecies to monsters when things really started to get interesting. So a quick list of the monsters they added in Monster Hunter G: the Azure Rathalos, Silver Rathalos, Black Diablos, Black Gravios, Blue Yinkatku, Green Plesioth, Pink Rothian, Gold Rothian, Purple Gypsyros, Red Kezu, White Monoblos, Ashen Leo Shenlong, and Crimson Fatalis. Those are all of the new monsters in Monster Hunter G. Also White Velociprey. So that is all the changes for the PlayStation 2 version of Monster Hunter G. Shortly after they came out with this Monster Hunter version, Monster Hunter G on the PlayStation 2, they decided to port the game to the PlayStation Portable. So they titled that game Monster Hunter Portable, or in the West, Monster Hunter Freedom. And oh my, was it not liberating! This was my first taste of a Monster Hunter game, and good golly, it was a great bite. I played countless hours with my next door neighbor on my PSP. I would go over to his house, he'd come over to my house, and we would slay every monster we could. Now, seeing as this is a PlayStation 2 game that they had to port to a handheld game, there were many things that had to be, watered down. So the graphics obviously didn't look as good, but the game maintained the entire structure. So it really is just the PlayStation 2 game in a handheld system. They did make some changes though. My favorite change that they implemented was that they added a farm while you're in the village in between quests. So you could go to this farm, which was a separate area, and you could mine with your own pickaxes, you could gather bugs with your own nets, you could fish, you could do a variety of different things that was sort of to help you with inventory management without having to depart on a separate quest just to go get these items. So in between each quest, you could go back to the farm and gather extra materials or just mine or do whatever small things that you need in between each quest. The reason I really liked this was because it was sort of like a minigame in between each quest. And there was actually a minigame that you could hit a giant tree with this hammer. Man, I miss the farms. I miss the farms a lot, and I always thought that was a really fun feature. But it is time consuming, so. Lastly, I will say it again, you do have to use your own pickaxes and bug nets for the farm, and anything that you don't have inventory for will not carry over to the box. So you need to have free inventory space going into the farm, otherwise you won't be able to mine or whatnot. Monster Hunter 1 had no subspecies, but Freedom had all of the subspecies that Monster Hunter G had. Freedom also had a much more streamlined offline access to the guild hall. In the first game, you couldn't access the guild hall unless you were online. They changed that for Freedom, where they allowed anyone to access the guild hall, whether or not you were online. That way you can verse things like the Fatalis or the Leo, and you have access to all of the guild hall quests. Freedom also had G-rank quests, but it didn't have the charge for the greatsword still. And they also had to change up a lot of the controls because they were on a portable system now. They didn't have 2 analog sticks. So without the second analog stick, they were forced to put the attack buttons on triangle and circle, which is where they have remained to this day. Another new addition is that they gave us a feline kitchen for meals that grant stat boosts. This is basically a staple in the game series, so pretty much cemented right off the start. In Gen 1, we've always had feline meals, which is very, very cool and very iconic for the series. Couple last few facts for Monster Hunter Freedom for the PSP. They did add a new monster, which was the Yingaruga. He was not very friendly. It was a very difficult fight back in the day. And also, they added a new mode called Treasure Hunting. This allowed players to team up in pairs of 2 and go treasure hunting for items that weren't available during the story or the regular playthrough. So you'd find these special items, bring them back to Treshi, and you would get exclusive rewards such as items that are very difficult to come across, and things like slick axes, which multiply your items. So that is Monster Hunter Freedom in a nutshell. Those are all the things that they added to the portable version of Monster Hunter, and honestly, I think that's probably the best way to play the first generation if that's what your goal is to do. If you'd like to play the first generation, I'd say pick it up on the PSP. But if you think that's where Gen 1 ended, you are wrong, my friends. They ended up bringing Gen 1 back in 2009 on the Wii. What? Yeah, no one would have guessed that one. Yep. Well, they actually came out with Monster Hunter G on the Wii as a promotional item, and they attached the Monster Hunter Tri demo disc to the sale of Monster Hunter G on the Wii. And then they added a few changes to the version that kind of helped players out that have been playing other versions of the game already. So let's talk about the changes that they made to the Wii version of Monster Hunter G. Alright, I'll go through these a little quicker. You can hold R while climbing in Monster Hunter G for the Wii, and you'll actually climb a little faster. They have added slightly better visuals, and they actually have added some changes for the weapons as well, because they did add some changes in Monster Hunter 2 that we'll get to, such as the greatswords now have their charge attack from Monster Hunter 2, which is a much welcomed addition. The hammer golf swing is faster, and the lance stab combo is also faster. And the sword and shield can use items while the sword and shield is out, like in Monster Hunter 2. You start the game with chainmail and one of every weapon, and you can now make things in your box, but you still need the Book of Combos for better rates of success. Unlockable costumes for the Poogie are now available in the Wii version of Monster Hunter G, and you can also buy potions right from the start of the game. In the PlayStation 2 version of the game, you had to kill Monoblos first in the story. Hammers still cannot KO, and neither can Crag Shots. They did keep some changes, such as using the buttons for attacking, so the right analog stick is not for attacking in the Wii version. And lastly, we finally get a weapon preview screen for the smithy and for the shop. So, much welcomed addition there as well. And honestly, friends, that pretty much sums up all the changes that they implemented for Gen 1. Sorry it's taken us so long to get to Gen 2, but there was a lot to cover with just Gen 1. Next video will be on all the changes going into Gen 2 and the G-Rank version of Gen 2. Lastly, I'll just leave you with this little bonus. I found this awesome trailer, this hilarious trailer for Monster Hunter G on the Wii in Japan. It's probably the best promotional thing for Monster Hunter that we've ever gotten. So check this out.
なんやねん。大変や。モンハン G が。Wii で出る。
His face just frozen like that is so great. I don't know how we got something so great, and I didn't know about it till way later. They give us another one too. Ready? Ah, it's so good. And the last one's the best one. Here we go. And you wonder why the cats suck as partners. This is why we need Poogie as a partner. He crushed that thing. Boom! Oh, crushing it. Oh my god. It's so good. It's so good. Well, thanks for sticking around to the end, my friends. If you liked the video, please consider giving this video a like. That would help me out a lot. And, you know, share it with one of your friends, a friend of yours who really enjoys Monster Hunter, maybe is just getting into it, or really likes the lore or the history of it all. If you're not subscribed, please do subscribe if you're interested in the series. I have the rest of the parts coming up very shortly. So thanks again. Take care, friends.